Picture, if you will, a crowned figure standing at the crossroads of eternity. In one hand, they hold the blazing sun, golden, radiant, the very essence of conscious will. In the other, the silver moon, receptive, mysterious, the keeper of hidden depths. Yet this is no mere mortal holding the celestial bodies. This figure is both king and queen, both father and mother, both penetrating flame and nurturing water. The alchemists called this being the Rebis, the divine androgyne, the perfected union of opposites that marks the culmination of the great work itself. Welcome back to our journey through the hidden wisdom of Hermes. Today, we venture into one of the most profound and misunderstood symbols in the entire Hermetic tradition, the archetype of the divine androgyne. This is not a discussion of physical form or modern identity, but rather an exploration of the deepest spiritual truth, that wholeness comes not from choosing sides in the cosmic dance of opposites, but from learning to embody both partners with equal grace. The roots of this sacred image stretch back to the very dawn of human consciousness, woven into the mythic fabric of every culture that has ever gazed up at the night sky and wondered about the nature of creation itself. In ancient Greece, Plato spoke of primordial beings who were once whole, creatures possessing both masculine and feminine qualities, until they were split in two by the gods, forever seeking their other half. The myth of Hermaphroditus tells of the child of Hermes and Aphrodite, who became one flesh with the nymph Salmacis, creating a being that was both male and female in perfect union. But these were not mere stories told around campfires. They were roadmaps to a reality that transcends the apparent divisions of our everyday experience. Travel eastward, and we find Ardhanarishvara, the half-male, half-female form of Shiva, where the Lord of Destruction and his consort, Parvati, merge into a single divine body. Here, the right side blazes with masculine fire, while the left flows with feminine grace, teaching us that the ultimate reality contains and transcends all dualities. In the Kabbalah, we encounter Adam Kadmon, the primordial human who contained within their being the perfect balance of masculine and feminine energies before the fall into separation. These images from across the world point to the same fundamental truth that lies at the heart of Hermetic philosophy. The universe itself is engaged in an eternal dance of polarity, and the goal of the sage is not to choose a side, but to become the stage upon which the dance unfolds. The Kybalion teaches us that everything flows, everything has its rhythm, everything swings like a pendulum between its poles of manifestation. But what if we could find the still point at the center of that swing? What if we could become the axis around which all polarities revolve, participating in their movement while remaining unmoved by their apparent conflicts? This is precisely what the alchemical image of the Rebis represents. Not a static fusion that destroys distinction, but a dynamic wholeness that contains and transcends opposition. Look closely at any authentic alchemical text and you'll find this crowned figure appearing again and again, sometimes depicted as two bodies sharing a single head, sometimes as a single form with distinctly masculine and feminine sides, but always crowned, always royal, always holding the symbols of solar and lunar consciousness. The crown upon the androgyne's head is no mere decoration. It represents the achievement of the philosophical gold, the lapis philosophorum, that is the ultimate goal of all alchemical work. This crown can only be worn by one who has successfully united the Red King and White Queen within their own being, who has married the active sulfur of will with the receptive mercury of wisdom, who has learned to be both the lover and the beloved in the cosmic romance of creation. Notice how the rebis stands not in opposition to duality, but as its fulfillment. The sun and moon are not destroyed in this union. They are held in perfect balance, each maintaining its distinct nature while contributing to a greater harmony. This is the secret that separates true integration from mere fusion. The divine androgyne does not eliminate the masculine and feminine principles. Rather, it provides the sacred space within which both can dance their eternal dance without losing themselves in the movement. The alchemists understood that this union was not something to be achieved through external manipulation, but through the careful cultivation of inner awareness. Every human being, they taught, carries within themselves both the Red King and the White Queen, both the solar principle of conscious action and the lunar principle of receptive wisdom. Our task is not to choose between them, but to become the sacred marriage chamber within which they can meet and know themselves as one. This is why alchemical texts speak so often of the Hieros Gamos, the sacred marriage that takes place not in the external world, but within the secret laboratory of the human heart. The sulfur and mercury, the sun and moon, the king and queen, all of these are aspects of our own consciousness, waiting to be recognized, integrated, and ultimately transcended through their perfect union. Carl Jung, that great student of the Western esoteric tradition, understood this principle when he spoke of the Animus and Anima, the masculine and feminine aspects of the psyche that must be brought into conscious relationship for individuation to occur. But Jung's insight, profound as it was, merely scratched the surface of what the Hermetic masters had known for millennia. That the integration of opposites is not merely a psychological technique, but a spiritual imperative that reflects the very structure of reality itself. Consider the implications of this teaching for our own inner work. How many of us spend our lives identified with only one half of our essential nature? How many men suppress their receptive, intuitive, lunar qualities in favor of solar aggression and control? How many women deny their penetrating, discriminating solar wisdom in favor of passive, unconscious receptivity? And how many of us, regardless of our outer form, swing like pendulums between these extremes without ever finding the still point at the center? The path of the divine androgyne offers a different way, not the denial of either principle, but the cultivation of both in perfect balance and mutual support. First, it means learning to recognize and honor both the masculine and feminine qualities within our own consciousness without judgment or preference. The masculine principle, whether we find it in a man or a woman, is the force of discrimination, analysis, penetration, and directed action. It is the sword that cuts through illusion, the fire that burns away the unnecessary, the focused will that transforms intention into manifestation. The feminine principle, equally present in both men and women, is the force of receptivity, synthesis, containment, and nurturing wisdom. It is the cup that holds and transforms, the water that flows around obstacles, the patient earth that receives the seed and provides the conditions for growth. Neither principle is superior to the other. Both are necessary for the complete functioning of consciousness. The task is to learn when to employ each one, and ultimately, how to embody both simultaneously without contradiction or conflict. The alchemical texts provide us with a roadmap for this integration through their careful attention to the stages of the work. In the Nigredo, the black phase, we encounter the raw material of our divided nature, all the ways we have split ourselves against ourselves in service of some imagined ideal of purity or consistency. This is often the most difficult phase, as we must face the shadow of our rejected aspects without flinching or turning away. In the Albedo, the white phase, we begin to separate and purify these opposing elements within ourselves, learning to distinguish between authentic, masculine, and feminine qualities and their distorted shadows. Here we might discover that what we thought was strength was actually hardness. What we thought was compassion was actually enabling. What we thought was wisdom was actually fear. But it is in the Rubedo, the red phase, that the true work of integration begins. Here, the purified opposites are brought together in the sacred marriage that creates something entirely new, not a compromise between polarities, but a transcendent synthesis that contains and surpasses both. The crowned Rebis stands as the living symbol of this achievement. Neither male nor female, yet both. Neither active nor passive, yet expressing both with perfect timing and complete authenticity. This is the goal of the great work, not the elimination of duality, but its conscious integration into a higher unity that honors and transcends both poles of manifestation. This sacred marriage of inner opposites reveals itself in the most ordinary moments of our lives. The principle of the divine Androgyne manifests as a fluid responsiveness to each situation, sometimes requiring the penetrating clarity that cuts through confusion, sometimes calling for the receptive wisdom that listens beneath words. The integrated consciousness moves between these modes like a dancer shifting weight, maintaining perfect balance while meeting whatever the moment demands. This is the practical magic of the Rebis, not exotic spiritual attainment, but the profound simplicity of meeting life with our complete range of human capacities. Strong yet flexible, assertive yet receptive, clear yet compassionate, the androgynous consciousness transcends the either-or limitations that keep most of us trapped in partial responses to whole situations. The creation of the divine androgyne within human consciousness serves a purpose far greater than personal integration. When the microcosm achieves perfect balance, it begins to resonate with the macrocosmic harmony in ways that transcend ordinary causation. The consciousness that embodies both solar fire and lunar water becomes a living bridge between worlds, a conscious participant in the eternal dance of creation itself. Watch how alchemical images often show the Rebis standing upon the dragon of prima materia, that raw, chaotic substance of unintegrated experience. The divine androgyne does not flee from duality and conflict, but plants itself firmly within them as a conscious agent of reconciliation. They embody what the Taoists call Wu Wei, action arising from perfect stillness, intervention without interference, leadership that guides by example rather than force. Understanding our purpose as agents of conscious integration transforms every challenge into raw material for the great work. Opposition becomes not something to overcome, but the creative tension that generates new possibilities. The lover's quarrel reveals itself as practice, in holding both passion and compassion simultaneously. Workplace conflicts become opportunities to embody clarity and flexibility in service of larger harmony. Internal struggles between security and freedom transform into the generative force that births lives of conscious adventure grounded in wisdom. What emerges is not the elimination of challenge, but a fundamentally transformed relationship to opposition itself. We begin to recognize conflict not as failure, but as invitation, each tension calling us toward ever greater wholeness. The ancient texts speak of the philosopher's stone not as a physical object, but as consciousness that transforms everything it touches into gold. Perhaps that consciousness is precisely this integrated awareness, the ability to meet every situation with the full spectrum of human responsiveness, bringing both penetrating wisdom and receptive understanding to each encounter. Standing at the crossroads of solar fire and lunar water, holding both the blazing light of conscious will and the mysterious depths of unconscious wisdom, the Rebis offers us a vision of human potential that transcends every limitation we have accepted about what it means to be whole. This crowned figure reminds us that we are not condemned to choose between the active and receptive principles of our nature, not forced to sacrifice one aspect of ourselves in service to another. Instead, we are invited to become living temples within which all the forces of creation can find their perfect expression and ultimate reconciliation. We are called to embody the sacred marriage of opposites that the cosmos itself demonstrates in every sunrise and sunset, every inhalation and exhalation, every moment of expansion followed by every moment of contraction. The work of creating the divine androgyne within our own consciousness is perhaps the most challenging and rewarding endeavor we can undertake. It requires nothing less than the complete reorganization of our relationship to ourselves and the world around us. It demands that we release our attachment to one-sided identities and learn to find our center in the dynamic balance of all possibilities. Yet this work is also supported by every force in the universe, for it aligns us with the fundamental pattern according to which all things come into being, develop, and return to their source. When we undertake the creation of the Rebis within ourselves, we are not working against the grain of existence, but with it. We are not trying to impose our will upon a resistant reality, but learning to dance in harmony with the cosmic rhythm that flows through all things. The crowned androgyne stands before us now, not as an impossible ideal, but as a living invitation, a call to remember what we have always known in the deepest part of ourselves, that we are neither purely masculine nor purely feminine, neither completely active nor completely receptive, neither entirely solar nor entirely lunar, but rather the conscious space within which all these forces meet, recognize each other, and discover their ultimate unity. This is the great work in its most essential form, not the creation of something that has never existed, but the conscious recognition and embodiment of what we have always been beneath the surface of our apparent divisions. The divine androgyne is not an achievement that awaits us at the end of some long spiritual journey, but the truth of what we are in this very moment, waiting only for our willingness to embrace both the king and queen that reign eternally within the secret kingdom of the human heart.